Story 1. Your handwriting is so neat that if you had been born before the invention of the printing press, you would have been in charge of writing books. By far the most creative compliment I have received. Story 2. I was walking alone in a shopping mall, full of teenage anxiety, feeling self-conscious and a bit down about my looks. At that exact moment, a complete stranger called over to me as they walked by. "I love your hair." I had it dyed pink at the time. It reversed my train of thought instantly and gave me a real boost at the most coincidental of times. I'll never forget how good it made me feel, having knocked me out of my head with the complete opposite of what I was thinking about myself. That must have been over 15 years ago now. Story 3. I just told the music minister at our church that I was pregnant. She was so excited for me, and she said, "I'm so happy for the world." It made me cry a bit. Story 4. The nicest compliment I have ever received was when someone told me that I made them feel truly heard and understood. They said that I had a way of making them feel comfortable being themselves and that I brought out the best in them. It was such a meaningful compliment because it showed that my efforts to listen and be supportive were making a positive impact. Story 5. I'm old, 66 years old to be exact, and I received my favorite compliment today. When I was young, I was always a bit overweight because I guess I had an eating disorder and craved carbohydrates. It annoyed and maybe even disgusted my parents. But I was also really smart, especially in the arena of discussing social, political, and philosophical ideas. Through high school, college, and afterward, my dad and I had great late-night discussions on those topics. These discussions gave me confidence in my intellectual capabilities, and I ended up getting a couple of degrees in philosophy. Now I am retired and enjoy taking classes offered by my local university for retired folks. As we were walking out of the class called Good or Bad, Right or Wrong today, about how we develop our perceptions of good and evil, a classmate said to me, "You're really smart. Your comments always make sense." That compliment made me feel so good. Story 6. When I was in cosmetology school, I got this little old lady with the worst buildup and scales on her scalp. She was a regular who came in every week. I brushed her until her little scalp was pink. Then I washed her and massaged her head so thoroughly that all the buildup and scales were gone, and her scalp was pink. After I did her hair, she was so happy and told me she hadn't had anyone care for her so nicely in about a year. 50 years later, I still remember how happy she was to get her scalp cleaned. Story 7. I was having a really bad day a few years ago. I ended up in a Walmart aimlessly wandering, trying to take my mind off things. A woman and her 3 kids approached me, and her youngest daughter, probably 6 to 8 years old, wanted to say something to me but was too nervous. I have an off-putting appearance, mostly a resting, unfriendly face. But after some encouragement, the little girl said I was the prettiest girl she had ever seen, and that she wants to look like me when she's older. You bet I cried in a Walmart when they walked away. Story 8. Back in college, I lifeguarded in the summer. I was working out a lot and had a tan and, of course, lifeguard glasses. A little kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old, came up to me and said, "You look just like The Rock." I rode that compliment for a decade. Story 9. Daddy, throw the ball to the moon. Daddy is big and strong and can throw to the moon. My 3-year-old almost caused an interplanetary incident with that. I would have thrown the ball through the moon had we been outside. Story 10. Walked into work one day and a female coworker said, "You look really good today." I had actually taken the time to get ready that morning. I said thanks, smiled, and kept walking. But then as I'm walking by, she stops me dead in my tracks, looks deep in my eyes and says, "I'm serious, you look really good today," and gave me what some may call the look. I will never forget that one. Story 11. During my senior year of college, I was feeling really down due to a difficult situation with a girl who had been playing games, along with other challenges I was facing at the time. I gave a presentation in one of my classes, and afterward, I was casually chatting with one of my friends, jokingly apologizing for making him sit through my poor presentation. A girl from our class mentioned that my presentation was actually very good and enjoyable. Her compliment truly made my week. Although I was still in a mental slump, I remember going home that night feeling much better. After that, she and I never spoke again. Our paths just never crossed again. For the brief moment she was in my life, she left an impact on me as a reminder that kindness exists in this world, no matter how bleak things may seem. Story 12. Oh my God. How in the hell do you have a 21-year-old daughter? Did you start having sex when you were 12? She was planned and born when I was 25 years old. Story 13. My kids are both in their 30s now, but when they were young, our house was the neighborhood hangout for a lot of kids. We always had a welcoming atmosphere because even if it led to a bunch of extra kids here, we always knew where ours were. Fast forward to a few years ago, and we run into my daughter's best friend from those days, with a kid of her own. As we're talking about the old times, I casually mentioned how we just loved her like she was one of our own. And she didn't even pause as she added, "You loved all the kids." Just made my heart feel so good. Story 14. My mother and I had a very complicated relationship for my whole life. She was an alcoholic for most of it, and I was an angry kid who wasn't very kind to her when she was struggling to make ends meet as a single mom. Many years later, I had a child of my own, and a few months before my mom died, she told me that I was so good with my daughter. I really think about that a lot. It's not been easy having a child, and she will never know how much it meant just to have her tell me that before she died. Story 15. In high school, I was not the best on our team, but I had figured out how to help make each one of us better. At the end of the season, a couple of awards were given out that every member of the team voted on. My teammates voted me most valuable. Story 16. I once ran a Dungeons and Dragons game for someone at a convention. She told me, "I can't wait to go home and draw the story you gave me." It's a large part of the reason I still try to draw and write despite everything and even after long gaps. It's been years, and I still think about that funny girl in the witch's hat. I wish I had gotten her name. Your kindness echoes a lot longer than you think. Story 17. A very close friend of mine from high school who planned on going into the military after graduation told both my mom and me that I was the most loyal person he had ever met or known, and that he wished I could have gone into the military with him because he trusted that I would always have his back and be there for him. I've actually had several other people, including friends from college, say the same thing to me, so I guess if you become my friend, I'll be there for you. Story 18. My son's mother-in-law told me I raised two polite, kind, and considerate young men as a single mom. Both my sons turned out to be 100% better humans than their father. Story 19. I swear that delivery is half of what makes a compliment land. I've received more meaningful compliments than this one, and different versions of this exact same compliment. But I can still hear the way that a guy in my philosophy class called me beautiful. It was the way he was saying it more to himself than to me, as though there was no denying that it was just a fact. Story 20. As someone who suffered from depression the past years and is always overthinking and worrying about most things, I was glad when I heard people saying that they never saw me without a smile on my face. I don't know if it counts as a compliment, but it made me happy in some way to hear that. Story 21. From another girl. You look like a ball-jointed doll made of porcelain, and your nose is so cute. From a guy. Your eyes are mesmerizing in the sun. There are so many colors, like a crystal lake. From my grandmother. You look like my own little vampire doll. Story 22. I just recently dyed my long hair black and put it in a braid. I was wearing a blue hoodie. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5, said I was Princess Jasmine. I told her not to tell because I was sneaking out from the Sultan, and she wanted a picture. I have twin 6-year-old girls. I said not to share it because I was trying to shop at the grocery store like a normal person and not a princess. It was just for her and me to have something special so my father didn't know I was sneaking out of the palace. I look like a Disney princess? Oh my, I can't. I'm a 38-year-old Costa Rican woman with twins. Flattered is an understatement. Dude. Story 23. I cried happy tears when my boyfriend told me that my smile makes him want to smile because my smile makes it feel like everything is right in the world. Story 24. My dad came to my house, and I opened the door wearing jean shorts and a tank top. He said, "Wow, you look like a rock star." Almost as good as the time I was dressed up for a wedding, and he told me I looked like a Kennedy. He's been gone for 6 years now, and I'd give so much just to hear another one of these weird compliments. Story 25. I was noodling around on a guitar in Samash back in 2004-2005. Two kids around 10 to 12 walked over with their dad, and they were nudging him to talk to me. He asked if I could give them any advice on how to play the way I play and if I was available to give them lessons. I don't recall exactly how I told them that I had never had any formal lessons on guitar, but I learned how to read music and play other instruments prior to picking up guitar, so I would be a horrible teacher. I was going through some serious self-doubts at the time and had just quit my band. That moment has stuck with me for almost 20 years because your friends and family can be supportive, but you always question whether they're sincere or just being supportive. Story 26. I guess it was a compliment, but it was cringe at the time. Back in the 1980s, when I was 20 years old, I was passing out wedding invitations to coworkers. One of the senior managers in his 40s said to me, "Why make one man miserable when you can make them all happy?" Story 27. My ex would call me handsome and pay me compliments, making comments about my genitalia. None of my other relationships would pay me any compliments, so it was nice to hear and funny to laugh at how enamored she would get. Haha. Story 28. You are such a kind soul from a work colleague who had been bullied by another. The workplace addressed the issue quickly and very well, but the lady sadly had already decided to leave. Story 29. I've had 3 people tell me I look like Liv Tyler, and my body dysmorphia won't let me see it, but it makes me smile every time. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and Arwen is my favorite female character. It's the highest of high compliments for me. Story 30. First thing that comes to mind, and I forget the exact wording, but it was along the lines of, "I usually hate working with new people, but you've been great." It's pretty simple, but it meant a lot because at work, I always feel paranoid that people don't like working with me. Story 31. A toddler told me I was very pretty and that she liked my shirt. I'm a dude and I had the most plain shirt on, but damn, I felt pretty for the rest of the day. Kids don't lie, right? Story 32. If civilization breaks down or society collapses, I want you on my team, has been said to me by friends and family on multiple occasions. I know mechanics, electrics, electronics, carpentry, woodworking, hunting, fishing, and so on. I have chickens, dogs, well water, tons of long-term storage foods, and so on. Story 33. I was working full-time and going to school part-time to finish my bachelor's degree. I would study in the building's lounge at work during lunch and after work until 8 p.m. A woman who worked at an embassy in the building would take lunch whenever I did. One day she approached to tell me how she was quitting her job because she got accepted to law school and that watching me study day in and day out was her inspiration. I remember her to this day. Story 34. I used to work as a cashier and it was my first job, so I used to be very kind to everyone. There was this mother with her son, around 6 years old, shopping almost every day. We never had any kind of interaction other than basic. One day, after our transaction was over, she turned to me and said, "I wish my son to be like you when he grows up." I still remember this compliment whenever I lose confidence. She didn't just make my day. She gave me a weapon when fighting with anxiety. Story 35. My father-in-law told me very faintly, but quite literally from his deathbed, "You are a good man." He passed away not long after. It was honestly the proudest moment of my life so far. Others have said it since then, but the weight of the idea, "With my last breath, I'm going to tell you what I truly think of you," made it profoundly important. I'm just trying to live up to that compliment for as long as I can. Story 36. Well, not sure if it counts as a compliment per se, but someone wrote something very sweet and heartwarming for my birthday. I just cried because I can feel the strength you have gained through the hell you have endured, and boy, have you made it ever so beautifully. I barely know you, but at that photo shoot we met at, I remember walking up to you and being random, and the sadness in your eyes captivated me, made me want to just hug you right there upon meeting. I felt myself trying not to be awkward because I saw the battle you were fighting in your eyes, but then you smiled after I was being funny, and it just gave me this overwhelming feeling of strength. I remember that, upon meeting you, your purpose in this life was always to be this strong. Oh, the places you will go with this strength. I can't wait to see you shine even brighter, my friend. Happy birthday to a wonderful woman. Mom, friend, human, who is doing enough. Story 37. I've been told by several people that they feel calmer just from being in the same room as me. I'm very calm. There is absolutely no tension in my back. Story 38. A girl I've been talking to said over text yesterday, "I haven't met anyone as considerate as you, and I think it's one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten." Story 39. I hold whole concerts in my shower because I can. My neighbor can hear me through the window of my bathroom sometimes and told me he wanted to start a TikTok account of my singing because he thought it was so good. It was both adorable and creepy. Story 40. This girl in college randomly told me that if she couldn't have babies, she would want my eggs to make a baby. Sounds a little weird typing it out, but I still think of that comment like once a week.